studio right now, a very brilliant, talented, and attractive artist, Rachel Palumbo.
That is quite the introduction.
Well, you didn't hear the real intro I'm going to do. So now, given the assumption that everybody knows your stats and levels of success, why don't you start telling me about your album?
So, thank you for having me, first of all.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My EP is called Armory, and it's a play on words. It's Armory as in the place where you store weapons.
Excellent.
And Armory as in my name, Rachel Marie. The whole objective was to create something that would sort of speak to the plight of somebody of my age demographic, and sort of the struggles that we endure. And really, it didn't actually succeed in that way because it ended up being more universal than that. But when I was writing it, I was thinking more along the lines of representing women in my age group. And I feel that it's sort of exceeded that a bit, and now it sort of relates to all different ages. But
took on a life of its own, if you will.
yeah, it sort of did, because I think I'm kind of an old soul, and I think I was writing, and when you're trying to make it a certain type of way, and instead of just allowing it to be what it is, it comes across that way. So I just kind of let it go, and I'm proud of it now. A lot of it is very centered on my relationship woes, if you will. Some of it talks about financial struggles that people go through, breakups, makeups. There's a couple instrumentals that I found that were sort of dark sounding, but the message was positive, so there's a little bit of a contrast there.
Right on.
I had a guest appearance by a female rapper that I love so much. She's actually more than a rapper. That's doing her a disservice. She's a singer, a rapper. She produces a little bit. She's actually a pretty good beatboxer. She dances. I mean, she's just super multi-talented. Wednesday Adams. So she featured on 2 of the tracks on Soldier's Plight and Focus.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting her. And
Oh,
at
that's
your,
right.
at your
You met her.
performance,
Yep.
she blew my mind. She's definitely got talent.
She's incredible.
And this is one part in a series that we're going to do together, so she will end up being in this
Part of
room
it.
talking to us
Perfect.
soon enough.
Perfect. Let her light shine through, because she's super charismatic and likable, genuinely. You know, she's not trying. She
Yeah,
just
when
is.
I introduced myself after the gig, and I felt like I already knew her forever.
Oh,
She's very
totally.
personable,
Mhm.
very open and honest, and
Yep.
it was a pleasure meeting her.
Yep.
And your gig was amazing too. You might want to talk about that.
Okay, so today is December 13th, so on the 27th, a couple weeks ago of November, I had a big, for me, that was big. I headlined a show.
Don't downplay it. It was amazing.
It was cool. It was like my show, which is rare. I've never had that happen before. Usually I'm jumping on other people's sort of sets, or I'm playing in places that are already sort of established and have like a layout of what the night's going to look like. This was all
Right.
centered on my music, and a couple cover tunes that we changed and sort of modified to make them more Rachel Palumbo-esque, I guess. I had a full band. The name of the show was Rebirth, because it was supposed to exemplify sort of my rebirth in music, because I took a little bit of a sabbatical from performing. I was recording a lot, but not so much with the performance, because I was so busy in school and stuff. So when I came back, I kind of came back and I tried to do it swinging, I guess. But it was a full band. I had a 3-piece rhythm section, and then horns and strings. A very talented and generous and sweet guy named Rashawn Odell Northington approached me and asked me if I wanted to do a show, and I was like, well, sure, of course I do. So he started to build on my ideas and sort of the things that I was comfortable with. He asked me, which cover tunes do you feel are closely related to what you want to do musically, or what sounds like it would be a good match. So I selected a couple. Some of them may not have been exactly in line with what my sound sounds like, but they were able to modify them to make them sound as conducive to that as possible.
Well, I think it definitely showcased your skill set,
Thank you.
the range that you have.
Thank you.
I was duly impressed.
That's
The
nice to
band
hear.
was amazing. The strings, everything, it was incredible, guys.
The
Good
strings
stuff.
was, I mean, really the whole thing was amazing. I totally didn't give enough credit to my horn section. They were totally on point and awesome, because when I first heard the strings, I think strings tend to bring about sort of,
Weepiness.
yes, it made me cry. It
Right.
actually made me cry, and I felt so stupid, but at the same time, it was a very raw, sort of authentic reaction to it. I'd never heard any of my music done live like that, because, nowadays we can do it. I was just having this discussion with your intern. What's your name?
Daryl.
Daryl.
Hey,
Okay.
Daryl.
Hey, Daryl. Daryl's here. He's in the background.
He's a creeper.
Yeah. You don't have to have a a band to make music anymore. And I know that that's sort of disheartening for musicians that play and have been playing for a long time like yourself.
Right.
But it's great for people like me that have to kind of make the most out of the resources and the things that they have. So I can have producers send me instrumentals that I can write to. The downside of that is I've never heard my music played live with live musicians and live instruments. So when I first heard it, it was almost overwhelming.
Well, see, conversely, to extrapolate from your point, it is cool for me being a rocker, if you will, to see somebody in the R&B world want a live band.
Yeah.
That's inspiring, and it needs to happen more often.
I agree. And it really does bring about like a completely different energy, you know, on stage. I mean, I've done many shows with just like backing tracks with harmonies behind me of my original music, but to have guitars and have a band that can sort of go back and forth with you and modify and arrange and rearrange things to accommodate whatever it is that you're doing musically at the moment, there's just nothing like that. It's the coolest experience, and I hope to really hone those skills more as we go into the new year.
Well, me and you are going to be writing a song together.
I'm all about it.
Acoustic guitar people. It's
all about it. We're going to soften them up.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you wanted to drop the name of the establishment. That was a beautiful room you formed.
Absolutely. It was
amazing studio, amazing resources.
Totally awesome. It's sort of a hidden gem. It doesn't appear on the outside what it's like on the inside. It's called the Studio Cafe. It's run by a gentleman by the name of Alan Dussel, and he is an engineer. He also heads the music department at the chapel at Crosspoint, which is the church I go to. So.
Oh, he didn't tell me that. I had the pleasure of meeting him too. He was a very nice gentleman.
Yes, he's extremely nice, very hospitable, very involved. It wasn't like he wasn't just there and sort of facilitating. He was at the mixing board. He was messing with the sound. He was recording. He was running from room to room.
Very proactive.
Totally proactive. Extremely nice. Just a really nice guy. But he had this really cool setup because we were able to track the whole performance live while I was performing. So not only was I able to use his space to perform because he has that open room you saw with lights and sound and seating. There's also the studio side of it as well. There's a studio built right in. So the really awesome piece was that the next day I had a live recording of the whole thing, and it was cool to be able to take myself back and listen to it. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to mesh. I had a video person there as well that was I want to say directing, but it was like a videographer. We're going to put the video with the audio, so it'll almost be like a music video.
Amazing.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, you had a lot of cameras on you that night.
It was cool.
It was cool from my vantage point as a spectator, if you will, to actually watching the engineers running around. Like you said, they were mixing your show live as it was happening, and you were up there performing, and you were oblivious to all this.
Completely.
Running around and work that was being done.
Really, those guys executed that pretty flawlessly considering. I mean, the whole night, of course you have your little sort of things that happen that you try to smooth over and sugarcoat and make try not to make a big deal out of, but they were really good about just rolling with everything. The whole entire sort of staff, if you will, everybody that was involved was really great about just rolling with things that happened. So if they had any errors or anything that happened, I had no idea. I couldn't tell.
No, the level of professionalism was mind-blowing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was good to see. I'm glad I know about that room now. It needs a little more attention
should use
brought to
that
it.
space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, did you perform your whole album that night?
No, I did. Let's see. I didn't do Soldier's Plate. I did kind of something acoustically with an excellent singer-guitarist, Mick Hayes. He's wonderful. He did his own stuff too. That was the first time I was able to meet him in person, and he was able to come on my set and do that with me as well as some of his original music. I also had Carlton Wilcox too, so I'll just shout him out as well. And Wednesday Addams was there too. So I did Focus with Wednesday, and I did Kind of Something. I did not do Rise Above. I did not do Soldier's Plate. I did Kick Rocks, which seemed to be a crowd favorite.
That was my favorite.
Excuse me.
Good song, people. That should be your signal.
It was so cool because that song was what really exemplifies like the difference, the major critical difference between being in the studio and being live. It was like you'll hear it when you can download the EP at rachelpalumbo.com.
Oh, we're getting there, sweetie.
Yes, when you download it, you can hear Kick Rocks in the studio, and when I released the live recording of it, it's still the same song. You can tell it's the same song, but there's just a major difference in terms of like the energy level and sort of the aggressive approach I took to it, just because I had to step it up a little bit to be able to sort of hang with those musicians.
Yeah, that one got me moving.
Cool.
That was a highlight for me that night too.
Cool.
Are there any other songs that you want to specifically talk about lyrically or conceptually, or
Man, there's just everyone.
there's such an emotional weight to your work, I've noticed, and
Lately, yeah. Actually, moving forward, I'm going to try to lighten it up a little bit because I think going through it, it is sort of heavy. It did sort of require a certain degree of sort of soul searching and strength to be able to write about the experiences. So I hope to, now that I'm kind of on the other end of it coming out, I'm hoping to write something a little bit more lighthearted. But all of the songs are important for different reasons. Rise Above is kind of a cool one because I wrote that song and I released it on WBLK's Unsigned Hype when they had it, and they just canceled that this year, a couple months ago. For those of you that don't know, in Buffalo we have a radio station that was playing unsigned artists on Friday nights for 2 hours. There's a segment, and I released that song among other songs. If you go on my website, you'll see the bio. And it went right to #1 on that site, and it stayed there. It stayed there for 5 consecutive weeks, and they had to retire me to give somebody else a chance. But while it was on, it seemed to really move people. And when I wrote about it from 3 different perspectives. The first one talks about having to work 2 jobs to support yourself or support your family. And for me, I wasn't actually working 2 jobs. I was doing the music thing and going to school at the time. But to me, it's 2 full-time jobs.
Absolutely.
On top of I have a 3-year-old who I am raising, and it was a lot. So I was writing about sort of struggling with that and still having a difficult time making ends meet. And I know that I'm not alone. I mean, we're in a recession, and this country's definitely got a lot of issues financially right now. So I felt it necessary to talk about it. The second verse was inspired by a deployment, thinking about a soldier and having to go through that. And I talked about battle scars, and I was actually talking about actual battle scars, but really it's figurative as well, because people, after they go through things, they're left with scars, emotionally, whatever it is,
Right.
Triggers, things that remind them and take them back, and that, you take that with you everywhere. So that was kind of tough with that one. And then the third verse, I had just lost my uncle. My uncle died sort of suddenly, and he was a really fun, just sort of a really fun sort of center of my family, and it was a huge loss. And I watched my family grieve, and I just, and myself included, and I remember thinking, I can't imagine being my aunt and having to look her children in the face and tell them this is the last time you're going to, say your goodbyes, kind of thing.
You're gonna make me crack over here.
I'm telling you, if
That's terrible.
if we could talk about the nature of the death and that kind of thing, it was really very sudden and very tragic. And his children are not young children, but I think his son was 12, and I lost my dad really young, so my heart was just bleeding for my cousins, and it was hard for me too. But my brother was close to him, my younger brother, and everybody in my family was just so devastated, and that's actually what that's about. And I don't think it's obvious that that's what I'm talking about, but I'm hoping to shoot a music video, and when I do, it'll be obvious
Your
and evident.
concept will come across, right?
For sure, yeah, I'll make sure of it.
Well, music is the universal language and the ultimate Band-Aid.
Yep.
Hopefully, like I said, I sense such an emotional weight in your art. I hope that you feel a little healed with some of these issues
I do, and that's
by
kind of
producing this record.
absolutely. That's always sort of what happened. And I didn't write them to try to take on anything therapeutic. It just sort of happens naturally.
Cleaning out the closet, if you will.
Yeah, and I try to tell myself, and I had an interview yesterday, and I was saying that I don't go into a song thinking this is my chance to therapeutically address this and this and this. I usually just hear something, and whatever's going on is what I write about instinctively, and I don't mean to. And I've actually done things where I've denied to myself, like, that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That's not true, breakups, emotional stuff that I wasn't really ready to deal with on the surface, like, face forward, like, look at it and for what it is, with relationships especially. But when I look at it in hindsight, I was very clearly talking about what I was going through at the time.
That's amazing, because, you're a vocalist, and I don't have that skill set, but as a guitar player, a drummer, playing electric bass, whatever, I communicate non-verbally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. Whatever mood I'm in, you will hear through my fingers somehow.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of music.
Yeah, and I think, lyrically it's cool. I think being able to write about it and verbalize and vocalize what you're feeling is really great. But it is so obvious because you're saying it. When you're playing, it's amazing to me how that message can come across without saying anything. Just because
Absolutely.
of the ambiance of the music and the mood and the way that it moves people. It really does. And it's the same thing when I hear a beautiful acoustic guitar. It literally can bring me to tears. It really can tear me up just because I love the sound of that. And if the musician is really seasoned and really good or really passionate about it, I just dig it. You know, I wanted to jump on music that I had no business being on just because it was so powerful in that way. And I
talk to you.
For sure.
A true artist should be able to sell you their art whether you're into it or not. Like
Totally.
say per genre. And that's where I'm inspired by you because I'm not necessarily a hip hop R&B guy.
Right.
But you could definitely direct me into a mood or an avenue where I could play with you or play something for you.
Cool.
Because your voice will drag me into it.
And I certainly hope that you do.
That's,
I would love to.
I don't like country, but if you're a great country guitar player, I will listen to your music.
Totally agree.
You know what I mean? I don't like to
Completely.
pigeonhole myself into any genre or.
Completely. There are songs that that have been inspirational across the board in different genres that stand out in my mind that I just, it's like it takes you back to that place. Whatever you're going through when you first heard it, you can envision it. Or if you're not, a good song can put you in that place.
Right.
I've written songs too where I'm not necessarily going, like my aunt, I wasn't going through that from her perspective, but I was able to sort of empathically understand what it was like for her. So I wrote from her perspective, even though I felt it, my own personal experience was different than what she was experiencing. It was still easy to write. I don't have a hard time thinking about it in somebody else's shoes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, to change the subject, what are your biggest influences out of curiosity?
Musically or in general?
Musically.
Gosh, I love so many different artists and
through some conversations with you in the past, you've brought up some artists that I was shocked to hear that you were into.
I mean, some of the more obvious ones. I was born in the '80s, so I went through the '90s. I love '90s R&B music so much. I love like all different artists from Mariah Carey to TLC. I love '80s and '90s hip hop artists like MC Lyte and like Queen Latifah. That kind of stuff. I love Notorious B.I.G. from the hip hop realm.
Nice.
My favorite rapper by far. I'm also inspired by artists like Nas, but in terms of more like genuine as far as like playing instruments, I love B.B. King, I love Eric Clapton, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan so much. I really love The Doors. I'm not a fan of Elvis, but I respect what he did for music. I think it's pretty cool.
Fair enough.
I love Etta James. Christina Aguilera is a huge voice. Alicia Keys was somebody that really is what was the catalyst for me to start singing live.
She's amazing.
I think she just really represents women in such a beautiful way. She's so talented and she's very sexy without having to try to be sexy.
Good point.
It's her talent and her skill level that makes her appealing to people.
Her confidence.
Absolutely. I mean, she's beautiful. Aesthetically, she's beautiful just to look at her, but she doesn't have to try so hard to get that point across. And I respect that about her a lot. And I think, it's just cool to watch her career evolve too. I actually like a lot of, I like bands too. I really liked Green Day as a kid growing up. I thought they were really great. I definitely I don't jam as much to rock music as I used to, but I respect it and I like it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I threw that boomerang at you is you're mentioning growing up in the 80s and you like music from the 90s. Do you see a lack of emotion in modern music?
I do.
Because I'm kind of cynical and I feel that everybody's kind of programmed. Genres are too repetitive.
And I think because music has become so much more
commercialized.
Absolutely, and it's you don't have to play an instrument to make it, and you don't have to be able to sing either.
That is true.
Singers sound wonderful on a track, but when you have them live, they can't sing a lick because they've been relying on autotune as a crutch for so long. And autotune, when used properly, is an awesome tool because it cuts time out in the studio. It's efficient, but you're cranking it up to 100 and using like a T-Pain effect. People that just spread like wildfire. I think that there's a lot less emotion. I think it's a lot less real than it used to be. I think that that's pretty universal in all genres, but I also think that there are certain artists that are doing it that are really great still, that are coming out now.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean to make a blanket statement.
Yeah.
But I do feel that music has changed a lot in the last 2 decades.
For sure.
And I don't want to blame the digital world for it, but I think you touched on a good point that it's becoming too easy to sound good.
You know what else really kills me, and this is something that I'm passionate about, and I struggle with it because it's a little hypocritical. In our society, we place so much emphasis on entertainment, and we spend so much money and dump it into sports and music and the arts and things like that. And I think that that's a good thing. I think the reason why we're spending so much is because we're going through sort of a depressed time. People need that relief. So a $50 concert ticket might be. That's why performing is so cool, because even if I'm if I can give somebody a break from the reality and the difficulty that they're facing at that moment in their life, just for 2 hours at my show, I feel like I'm doing something that is giving back. If I'm not entertaining them, I'm not doing my job. That's your job as an entertainer. However, because of the emphasis that's placed on the entertainment industry, we have completely just sort of given up on fostering dreams for children that involve anything academic. You know, we're not pushing kids to be doctors and lawyers, and we're not pushing kids to advance science and medicine and teachers. My God, teachers are so underpaid. I'm so passionate about that because these are
I can see
people.
in your eyes.
These are people that are responsible for shaping our youth and perpetuating, you know, our society, and we're underpaying them by so much. I'm not a teacher. I taught for a few months in a school in Colorado, but I didn't intend to be a teacher. I kind of got thrown into it. I enjoyed it very much, but it really opened my eyes to how skilled you have to be able to effectively create change in kids, especially kids that are resistant. And I'm not saying that, you know, being a musician or an actress or a football player isn't a valid profession and isn't needed, because like I said, there's a huge need for entertainment. People need that. But my God.
Stress relief. It's very tunnel vision, though.
It is.
You're bringing
you know?
up a brilliant point. I'm loving this.
It is. It's just we need to start fostering other avenues, or at least start fostering again. And not not everybody's doing it, but I do see there are hundreds of thousands of people that will tune in to watch the Kardashians, but nobody knows anything about politics in this country. Our generation's lacking so much in that respect. And
a smile on my face. I cannot agree more.
And I'm not going to get into a political debate or talk about my stance on it, but I certainly feel that there's so much apathy, and I think we really need to start taking a really close look at where we're spending our energy, our time, and our resources.
Oh, pay attention, people. Listen to this one.
Hey.
On that level, too, why don't you brag about your education a little bit?
Well, I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I'm just kidding. Maybe a little, but not so much.
She's valedictorian, people.
Yeah, that was me. No, I actually moved around a lot as a kid. I went to quite a few different schools growing up. I went to 3 different high schools. By the time I graduated, I went to a vocational school for cosmetology, which is also another huge thing. Like, not everybody's college bound. Those vocational schools are extremely important for kids too.
Fair enough.
So, don't look at those in terms of, them not being important, because they are. Anyway, after that, I went on to the University of Buffalo and got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I took a little leave from school because I was married to an American soldier, and I traveled a bit with his career, and then I came back to Buffalo and I finished up my education. I have a master's degree in social work. So right now,
there it is, people.
Yeah, so simultaneously, thank you, while recording this EP and working on music, I'm also studying for a licensure for my master's as well. And if music takes off, when music takes off, however you want to look at it, I still believe that my education was something I had to have in order to really feel comfortable pursuing music, because so many people, they throw themselves into their music, and I respect that because it shows dedication. But for me, in my own personal journey, I needed to have that education just in case. And that's arguable. Some people think that's smart, some people think that's stupid. It's really just a preference. For me, that's what I needed. I needed to get my education so that I could pursue music and not have that weighing on me, like, what if this doesn't work? Or, in the same token, it's because of my education that I'm able to articulate thoughts clearly, because I've written so much and I've read so much. I'm able to apply that to my songwriting.
You are a great communicator.
Thank you.
Even your commentary at your gig between your songs was magnetic.
Thank you.
It was very engaging, and I felt like I was going through these problems with you. You were very honest, but it wasn't superficial.
Thank you.
You really laid it out there.
Yeah, I
it was
tried.
believable.
I tried. I mean, it was real. That's really
better word. It was real.
I think for the first time, it was really kind of sobering for me, because I had to be honest with myself, and it's very exposing when you're telling your story, and I'm trying to be respectful when I'm talking about the individuals that inspire the story.
Right.
And I think we talked about sort of my approach and how I am a little bit aggressive or a little bit over the top when it comes to men, and like I'm a little bit harsh on them, and I don't mean it to sound that I don't want it to sound like I don't care about men, or I'm not, I'm callous to their needs, or I went through something that was really difficult, and it sort of, as a result, probably made me a little bit bitter. And coming out of it, I'm glad that I went through it, because I needed that. If I didn't have that armor, built up to tackle those problems, I probably would have fallen apart. So now I can kind of take the armor off and allow myself to let the walls down a little bit more. But, it is real, and it was real, and I'm glad that it came across that way.
Well, I believe there's going to be a lot of success coming your way because of this EP.
Thank you.
Not only because it is that emotional for you, but the whole concept, the name, the concept of your show, Rebirth.
Yeah.
It's all very unified, and you're getting your point across, and you're venting, you're healing, and you might even help other people through their problems.
That's all I could ask to
Your
do.
point is very clear,
Yeah, that's good.
and I think it's brilliant.
Thank you.
I do probably have to let you go at this moment, though. Unfortunately, I have to go to Buff State.
Okay.
I thank you for your time. Why don't you real quick, you're on Facebook, obviously.
Yep.
You have your own website, www.rachelpalumbo.com.
Yep. And Facebook.com/Rachel Palumbo Music. I'm on Twitter at Rachel Palumbo, Instagram Rachel Palumbo. YouTube is rpalumbo87. You can check out Little Secret. That's my first video that I shot in 2011 with a really talented young director named Arundi Colvin. And then my most recent work, Kind of Something, which is the bonus track on the EP. It sounds a little different than the rest of it. It has a little bit more of a lighthearted, sort of happy, centered around love kind of feel. I needed something to break up the monotony of the
Right.
darker stuff.
Right.
There's a video for that as well, and I'm working on some new stuff right now, so
Well, you're going to be back in here very, very shortly.
thank
Hopefully,
you.
we're creating some interest right now. And again, we're going to have to write a project together, so
I
that's going to
can't
be
wait.
aired shortly.
I'm thrilled. I can't
Um,
wait.
When I introed you for this session, people will know about WBOK, the Hype Music Awards.
Okay.
But again, I want to have you come back, and we're gonna delve really deep into your career. Maybe
Cool.
even talk about your first record.
Okay.
Are you interested in advertising that album at all, or no?
We could. I mean, it is something I did, I own all the rights to those songs pretty exclusively, so I certainly can.
Because you had mentioned earlier that you took your sabbatical, if you will.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure if you kind of feel like you're a renewed artist, if that's even in your vein anymore.
I feel like I think it's important to not lose sight of where you came from, and there are tracks on that album that I feel are really strong. I think collectively, it could have used a little bit more of a creative vision and a concept, but I was also young, and I was
Right.
inexperienced, and I worked with what I had, and, I tried to sort of be as resourceful as possible. So I'm not embarrassed of it or anything. We can certainly make it available to people if they want to hear it.
Excellent. I would love to do that.
It might be cool just for comparative purposes. People can kind of see
That's what I'm getting at.
how much I've evolved and grown as an artist and as a writer and
I've been
vocalist.
publishing and recording music myself for almost 18 years.
Wow.
And I don't love everything that I did in the past, but there's always those little gems that you're
Mhm.
saying you can almost track your maturity as a musician,
For
as a
sure.
person.
Yep,
You can
absolutely.
it's almost audible. You can hear it in
Definitely.
your art.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're going to be back very, very shortly.
Cool.
I hate to cut you short,
It's all good.
but I think this might be better because we're going to get some intrigue.
Hey.
We're going to get Deanne in here.
Yep. Dina.
Dina, sorry, I always say Deanne.
It's because
I
it
apologize.
looks like that when you look at the spelling. Wednesday Adams. Yeah.
There you go.
She's
I'll let you
awesome.
plug her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Check out Wednesday Adams. There's another really talented artist. She's just brilliant and amazing, and I work with her a lot, and she's really great. There's a couple artists that I'm working with right now that I love to shout out. MC Sav from Pacific Game. I work with him quite a bit. He helps me a lot with my marketing and that kind of stuff too, because he's savvy. No pun intended. Evident Truth is a group that's out right now that's kind of on the come up. You might want to check them
Excellent,
out.
excellent.
Maybe for the hip hop show. Really cool, extremely talented young guys that have a really amazing sort of creative vision that I feel is going to do really well. John L. Glean from GM Entertainment. He's really great. He has a show tomorrow. I'm hoping to check that out. Really good R&B artist. I'm just in a great positive circle of people. I'm so lucky and fortunate in that way.
Yeah, you're reeking of a lot of positivity right now.
I'm
That's
in a good
thing.
mood. I'm just happy to be here.
That is awesome. My thoughts just escaped me too. Where did you, was your whole album done in one studio, or was that a collaboration of
No,
sessions?
it was 2 studios. It was, excuse me, Outer Limit Recording Studio in Walden with Ken Rutkowski.
Very
I've
familiar with that establishment.
been with him since I was 15. He's an excellent engineer, really talented, really about his business and professional, and sort of a perfectionist in some ways, but I appreciate that so much because he takes it seriously.
Right.
And then I finished it up in Garden Recording in Lockport with, his name is Rob, also brilliant engineer, very musically seasoned, sort of fun and energetic, just super easy to work with and just fun. It was a great time. So it was a cross between those two studios, really.
Okay. And the good thing about Atomic Gardens too is he does a wide range of musical artists, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, I would hope that any engineer that I'm working with has sort of has an eclectic sort of background, because there are some tracks that require certain things and others
Right.
that require different
Especially
things.
with your genre.
Yeah, I mean, I very, in the same breath, I'll go from a hip-hop song to an R&B song to something more blues. I actually started writing country songs a little bit for other artists. So there's times when I need a different perspective, and if they have honed their skills in all genres, then I can feel secure that they're going to be able to do a really great job on the project.
Couldn't be more right.
I got a yearning and it's burning down deep in my soul. On the mic in the spotlight, out of control.